welcome back to another very interesting session. And before we go on to the session, it is time for us to recognize the efforts of our local management associations and announce the winners of the AIMA Best LMA Award for 2020-2021.
Welcome to the AIMA Best LMA Awards presentation ceremony. AIMA introduced these awards in 1988-89 to recognize the contribution and efforts of its local management associations towards creating institutional excellence and building management capability. The award jury this year was chaired by Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia. The other members of the jury included Mr. Vijay Thadani, Mr. Vineet Agarwal, Mr. Indradeep Singh, Mr. P. Dwarkanath, Mr. Krishan Kalra, Mr. Richard Reiki and Professor J.K. Mitra. Deloitte was the knowledge partner. We start with the Most Improved LMA Award for the year 2020-21. There are joint winners this year, and one of the winners is Calcutta Management Association.
Thank you, AIMA, for the award bestowed on CMA. It's really humbling to have received this award. If there's one thought which comes to my mind now is of gratitude. Gratitude to all our members, patrons, sponsors, executive committee members, the academic institutions who partnered with us, and of course all the speakers, many of you who have come from AIMA. A big thank you to Amitabh Datta, the past president, Ramin Barua, the then director, and Anirban, the GM of CMA, who steered the ship through these turbulent days. This award only spurs us to do more in the field of management education, collaboratively with other LMAs and with AIMA as well. Thank you, AIMA, again for this award, and as I said earlier, it's really humbling to have received it. Thank you.
The other winner of the Most Improved LMA Award is Kerala Management Association.
Under President Madhav Chandran's innovative leadership, KMA adopted responsible management as a theme for the year and brought in inclusive and innovative initiatives such as Leadership Talk Series, Startup Conversation Series, Women Manager Forum Series, Masterclass Series, CEO Forum Series and MSME Forum Series, and combined it with regular panel discussions with leaders on contemporary topics. Added to this was the Digital Summit, the Business School Summit, the Memorial Lectures, the educational programs and the awards. All these were widely covered by professionally crafted KMA monthly news magazine that was circulated to all. The icing of the cake was KMA getting ISO certifications in the year. We thank AIMA for recognizing our endeavors to bestow us with the Most Improved LMA of the Year award. Thank you.
Under Category 4 of the Best LMA Awards, the runners-up award goes to Meerut Management Association.
Good evening everyone. On behalf of Meerut Management Association, I express my gratitude and wholeheartedly thanks AIMA and the jury members of AIMA Best LMA Award for recognizing our activities and considering us as a runner-up in Best LMA Category 4. This is the second time we are receiving this prestigious award. Indeed, this is a result of phenomenal hard work of my team. I would especially like to thank and congratulate our past president, office bearer, council members and members of MMA for their incredible support and trusting us. This award will only motivate us to achieve more in the future. At the end, I would like to say, Ye Dil Mange More. Thank you all.
The winner in Category 4 for the year 2020-21 is Jamshedpur Management Association.
Hello everyone, it's a matter of great pride, privilege and honor for Jamshedpur Management Association to having been adjudged as the Best Management Association in Category 4 for the year 2021. This award, Jamshedpur Management Association, is being given for the second time in a row. In addition, this year, Jamshedpur Management Association has also got a seat on the AIMA Council. All these recognitions only motivate us to do better and achieve higher results. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Executive Board and the management team of Jamshedpur Management Association to having achieve these results, and I'm sure they will, with their relentless effort, achieve higher results as we move forward. Thank you so much once again.
The next award is in category 3 and the runners-up award goes to Indore Management Association.
Namaskar. I, Sapan Shah, on behalf of Team Indore Management Association, take great pleasure and honor in accepting the runner-up award for the best LMA bestowed by the All India Management Association to us for the year 2021. I would like to thank the entire team at AIMA for their wholehearted support and guidance given to us throughout the year. We are looking forward to working more closely with the AIMA team in the current session and are striving to get back to the coveted top spot in our category for the current session of 21-22. Thank you, Team AIMA. Thank you very much.
The winner in category 3 for this year is Thrissur Management Association.
Thrissur Management Association is very much delighted and honored to receive the Best Management Association Award from All India Management Association for the year 2020-2021 under category 3. This is the second consecutive year TMA is getting the awards from AIMA. So far, TMA has got 5 awards from All India Management Association. TMA is grateful to all the members of TMA, managing committee members and core committee members and secretariat of TMA for achieving this prestigious award. TMA is also grateful to the office bearers of AIMA and the secretariat for the support and guidance to achieve this award. Thank you.
The next award is in category 2 and the winner is Kerala Management Association.
Thank you, AIMA, for this great honor of choosing KMA as the best LMA of the year. KMA has been continuously trying to engage our members with innovative events of diverse topics of contemporary relevance and thereby keeping them connected, updated and remain positive in spite of the challenging times that we are going through. The Best LMA Award comes as a recognition to our initiatives and I am so thankful to all our officials and the Secretariat team for their untiring efforts to make KMA continue to remain relevant and meaningful. This award will motivate us even further to remain focused and be supportive to the management fraternity of our state of Kerala. Thank you.
The last award of this session is the Best LMA Award in Category 1. The winner of this coveted award for the year is Madras Management Association.
Shri Harshpati Singhania, President, All India Management Association and distinguished members of this House. On behalf of the Managing Committee of the Madras Management Association and its members, I am indeed delighted to accept All India Management Association's Best LMA Award for the year 2020-21. I am thankful to All India Management Association and the distinguished members of this jury for bestowing this honor upon MMA once again. This award conferred on MMA for the year 2020-21 is another significant milestone for MMA, more so in a situation where the contagion has been raging across the planet. This award excites us and inspires us to perform with sincerity and dedication to propagate the study of management across the rank and file of this great nation. I dedicate this award to all the members of MMA and to the perseverance of the MMA Secretariat led by Group Captain Vijay Kumar, but for whose untiring efforts such a coveted award would have been beyond our grasp. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the award presentation ceremony. Congratulations once again to all the winners.
Initiate the session on navigating the great disruption, getting on top of complexity, let us welcome on stage Mr. Rajiv Kaul, Chairman, Nico Engineering Services Limited, Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia, Chairman, Ambuja Neotia Group, Mr. Sudhir Jalan, Co-Chairman, Rieter India Private Limited, Mr. Nikhil, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Triveni Turbine Limited, and Mr. Pranjal Sharma, Economic Analyst, Advisor, and Writer and Author, India Automated. Before I invite Mr. Rajiv Kaul to deliver his introductory remarks, the poll question for the session is, CEOs will kill remote work as soon as they are allowed to. Do you agree, disagree, or can't say? May I now request Mr. Rajiv Kaul to open the session with his introductory remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and welcome to this afternoon session on navigating the great disruption. We've been living through one disruption after the other, but the biggest disruption that we've seen after the Spanish flu 100 years ago was today's pandemic. And in this session, we will be looking at a perspective from various CEOs in different fields, right, to find out what are the common threads at the macro level, if any, between the corporates in handling and tackling this large challenge, how technology can help us prepare for the future being a nice, bright one, or indeed in the shorter term, the future being a third wave or fourth wave or fifth wave, depending on which part of the world you live in. But that we will be hearing from the speakers. Basically, I would just like now to briefly say a few words on each of these speakers. To begin with, we have a truly outstanding moderator in Pranjal Sharma. He is a leading thinker on various verticals, be they economic, be they technology, including artificial intelligence, including augmented reality, and of course, the most simpler things in the, what should I say, ITES vertical in totality. Besides all this, he is also an expert on geopolitical economic affairs, and as I said, a tremendous thinker. So welcome to you, Pranjal. We have also with us Mr. Sudhir Jalan, who is in fact a very dear friend of mine for perhaps over 40 years. And I remember 35 years ago, he was very instrumental in being my friend, philosopher, and guide in navigating me through my very early years in chamber life when I became the vice president of Indian Chamber of Commerce, which was under personally very difficult circumstances. In him, we have the ability of him to set up a small-scale steel industry, convert it into a platinum steel plant, and today when gold is even more expensive than platinum, to convert it into a gold steel plant, encash it, and then help as an angel investor many young people to move ahead in life. Sudhir, a warm welcome to you to this session as well. May I move to another friend of mine, a much younger person, but a very dynamic person. He is a tall personality indeed. I think over 6 foot, well built. But when I say that in a lighter vein, because he, like the others on this panel, has incredible number of strengths. He has design in his blood, be it the building of hospitals, be it in the hospitality sector where he builds truly outstanding hotels, restaurants, and recreation centers, or be it giving a wonderful living space for people to stay in. Harsh, it's really a pleasure to have you, a person who believes in true excellence in whatever you do, on the panel with us today. Last and not the least, certainly, we have my very dear young friend, Nikhil Sawhney. Nikhil, to me, what should I say? You're a young nephew who's turned out to be a truly outstanding corporate leader at a dynamic young age. You're leading in the technology field. You're leading this technology field in terms of exports of high tech from India to global markets. And you are, in another couple of years, going to be at the helm of AIMA, taking us from strength to strength. So let me welcome you, Nikhil. And with these words, let me hand back to the tremendous thinker and my dear friend, Pranjal Sharma. Over to you, Pranjal.
Fantastic job of introducing us, but I think it also is important that I introduce you as one of the leading industry, thinkers. I would say you're as much as a thinker and a doer. I mean, just be a thinker, but you're actually a doer. And I think you have guided some of the most important industry bodies in the country, and therefore I think your role in guiding the country's industrial growth path should not be ignored at all. I think the last 18 months have obviously been difficult for everybody, but my request to the three speakers would be to dive into their own experience and help us understand what are the various milestones and the markers that they use to be able to navigate their organizations. A lot of decisions had to be taken, which were difficult decisions. At the same time, some of their deepest experience had to be applied in a new way. The real test of a leader is how he or she responds to a situation in a way that does not have a precedence in many ways. So I'll request Arji to begin and share his thoughts, and then of course I'll come to Sudhir and Nikhil. Arji, over to you.
Thanks, Pranjal. Thanks, Rajiv Bhai, and warm welcome to Sudhir ji and to Nikhil. I happen to be involved in all the sectors that was the worst impacted by this COVID. In fact, in the first 15 days of the first wave of COVID, I was absolutely in a state of shock because we are in real estate, we are in healthcare, we are in hospitality. And all the three sectors bore the brunt of it since none of them could work without human contact. And the lockdown obviously caused the disruption, but one could see that the sentiments of people were such that they would not easily go out to malls, they would not go to restaurants. Funnily enough, though we had a health crisis, we were not a COVID hospital, we are essentially in the other activities. Our occupancy in our three hospitals does somewhere between 80-85% normally. Within 15 days, our occupancy had fallen to something like 30-40%, even in hospitals. And this was simply because any elective surgery was postponed. The doctors were avoiding hospitals and so were patients. Construction was stopped, malls were stopped, hotels were stopped. So clearly it was a very difficult situation, and obviously, thankfully, it didn't pan out to be as bad as I imagined it to be. So we survived, and I'm still here smiling and talking to you. Otherwise, the situation was really very, very, very grave. Now, my first thought, to be honest, was that if I'm feeling so stressed, we employ collectively a little over 5,000 people in all our three verticals. I said, what about these people? They would be really under a lot of pressure and stress. Now, we had to take some decisions like ask people who are on temporary basis, particularly in the hospitality space, to be on furlough. We had to ask some of our senior team members to take up not a cut, but at least a deferment of pay. Just actually, we were taking some decisions, not knowing how things will evolve. But my keenness was three things. Number one, let us protect as many, or in fact, if possible, all the jobs. Number two, let's create some kind of a infrastructure to take care of everyone's health. And therefore, we set up quarantine facilities for our staff family. Many of them live in small places together with a number of family members. What if anyone gets COVID? We set up a helpline using our medical infrastructure to see that we could reach their families in case they had difficulty. We used our hotel kitchens to start serving food on a free basis to the needy people. And we used some of our hotel premises as quarantine and incubation centers. So this is really the first outreach that we did. With God's grace, after the first few months, things started looking up, and we have been able to recover. The way I looked at it is that when you hit with a crisis like this, I think the primary focus has to be on seeing to sustain the motivation of the team and to see that they don't really collapse. And they have far lesser resources than we have. So it was important to ensure that, we told them that we are in it together. And while you might not have your full pay, we'll make sure you don't lose your job, and we'll make sure that you have enough to keep the family going. Thankfully enough, the cuts that were taken at that time could be in all our sectors, except a part of it in hospitality, were able to be paid back already. And in hospitality also, I hope that as soon as things get right, we will be able to, the deductions that we have made, we will be able to make good. Of course, we took measures drastically to cut costs. We didn't realize how much flab we had put on in the system, and that it was a good opportunity to do that. And finally, what was important, which is came out of a difficult situation, was that we got a lot of time to reflect, not just for me, but also for my senior team. And everyone, I thought, came back into the organization with some new ideas and some new suggestions, which probably in the din of day-to-day activity and all the other stresses, we were probably unable to think so clearly. So while there was a lot of pain, there was also some silver lining behind this pain. And I think collectively we somehow managed to be around. We are still not fully smiling. My smile is half because we have just about been able to survive from not getting into deep trouble. But we still have a long way to go to recover the difficult situations that we walked into. But I at least see the end of the tunnel. I see that there is optimism. And now that vaccination is gaining momentum, I also sincerely hope, and I do believe that the third wave, if it comes, may not be as severe and perhaps not as difficult as the first and the second. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Arji. I think the two key points you made are very valuable. To take a decision when you don't know what's going to happen next is really driving the blind. And therefore, I think experience, gut instinct, and at least a moral compass to be able to take a decision in the right direction is very important. And that moral compass is reflected in your point when you said that we have to protect as many for as long as possible. And I think that is probably a very important marker of leadership. Sudhirji, I'd like to come to you about your experience. And, how did you lead your group through this?
First of all, thank you, Rajiv, for the very flattering words. Very kind of you. You do that all the time and embarrass me no end. Thank you, Pranjal, for giving me this opportunity. I will take a slightly different approach. We'll come to the individual thing perhaps in the second session. I will start by lightening the mood.
See, we had a 1.5 days of exhausting session. So probably I'll start with a story. And a story of Akbar Birbal. It's strange, you may say. Once upon a time, when Akbar was sitting in his court, he had a Diwane Khas and a Diwane Aam. Diwane Khas, he called all the people. There was a period of intense famine going on. And all the Diwane Khas people were feeling very happy. We have a very good year. We are making a lot of money and we are paying high taxes. Then he shifted to Diwane Aam, and there suddenly came at the end of the session a lot of people crying that we have no crops, we are dying, we have nothing to look after ourselves medically or even physically. True enough, he didn't know what to say, and the time was getting over, so he asked Birbal. And as usual, he said one sentence: "This too will pass." To me, that is a lesson. The COVID-19 and the pandemics and all of this will come and go. We have to keep our spirits up. Change is something which is bound to happen. We have to embrace it. Anyone who wants to fight change will be totally thrown away. If you have recollect the famous book of Alvin Toffler when he wrote on future shock about 50 years back, he said most people find it very difficult to embrace change when it comes to at a very fast speed. But it is taking technology itself is a great leveler that way. I think a subject which Pranjal is very familiar with. Today already we can see fossil is being replaced by renewable energy. You can see combustion engine being replaced by battery. You will see hydrogen biofuel will replace, and biofuel will replace aviation. So change is coming and will come at a faster pace. We have to accept this and flow with it and use this technology and the future technologies to cope with problems like COVID and other disruptions which may come. I'll use another minute to say that today's technology is changing so fast. Most of our generation were accustomed to using better technological hardware, better machines, second generation, third generation. Slowly, hardware is giving pace to software. And today, software is everywhere. It's the dominant field. But remember that within a few years, you'll probably see a quantum jump and artificial intelligence will throw software out. Software will be a small part of the whole thing. So the change is coming. Change will come. And COVID has only told us, be ready to accept the change. Flow with it, go ahead of the curve and beat it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhirji. I think that last phrase of yours is critical. Technology, of course, is an enabling tool in a platform, but the real question is, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Nikhil, this is a question, therefore, to you in terms of the Triveni Group and as the leader for the operations. What is the thing that you're doing today differently, which you perhaps did not even think of 18 months ago?
Thank you, Pranjal. Firstly, thank you for having me on this panel, and very warm hello to all my seniors here, and especially to Mr. Kaul. Thank you for your very kind words. Pranjal, many things have changed over the course of the last 18 months. Of course, the COVID exacerbated the digital disruption that was incumbent anyway, but it's hastened it and it sped it up. But more than that was a realization of actually how we should operate on a more agile basis. And that translated onto different factors through our processes, not only on our balance sheet to be actually more asset light, but to also allow for greater dynamism and therefore flexibility, but also in individual decision making. As COVID hit, in the group, we have certain businesses which were considered essential at the outset, such as our sugar business and our water business. But some of our engineering businesses, we had to struggle to actually have them defined as essential because we did have commitments not only to customers in India, but to customers internationally. We export over 60% of our product, and therefore to be able to maintain a degree of commitment to our customers, it was extremely important to be able to transform ourselves very quickly. Borders were shut down in many parts of the world, and we weren't able to deliver not only our products, but services that were necessary for us to be able to complete our commitments. And when we look at what happened over the course of the next several months, we empowered the teams to use the tools that would allow them to deliver their service or product to the customers. And this led to a greater degree of adoption of digitization, to the extent that we had commissioning engineers who were sitting in Bangalore wearing in our data control center with customers at site wearing augmented reality goggles, commissioning turbines, which are multi-million-dollar products in $100 million plants. And very frankly, we were able to do this with the support of everyone within the ecosystem. We needed the customers to cooperate. We needed our vendors to cooperate. And of course, the employees to be resilient and flexible in the way that they operated. The innovation that has actually come about through this process has allowed us to be more confident of change in the future. We believe that the tools exist within the system, but we have to be able to empower our employees, our vendors, and our subcontractors to be able to make the most of it. And I think, as Mr. Jalan also said, there are many disruptions along the way. Digitization has been pushed to the forefront right now. We have several others which are impending. Climate change is going to be disrupted and will probably be used as a means of trade barriers in certain cases. And so we need to be aware of what our surroundings are and on what basis decisions are getting taken, both geopolitically as well as within society. And to be able to function as a company, to be able to adhere to our commitments to our customers and use the tools to basically ensure sustainability of business practices as well as a continuity of business operations.
Thank you, Nikhil. This brings me to a question which I want to request all three of you to address. Based on the experience of these few months, what is the one thing you would like to recommend and advise to your own organization and to Indian industry on being prepared for managing volatility and unprecedented sudden systemic shocks? What should a company do? You talked about business continuity, Nikhil, and that's a very, very important piece. We often talk about resilience, but in practical terms, what does it mean? So I'll request Harshi to speak, and then Sudhir and Nikhil. So what should an organization do to build structural resistance to be able to manage such shocks, which could perhaps be stupid or other? But the point is, are we prepared for that?
Pranjal, before I answer that, I just want to raise one issue, which is potentially an important fault line that is going to be in front of us. As we have seen, while this digital acceleration has happened, there's also been a new kind of division that has come between the organized sector of business and the unorganized sector. This fault line to me was always there, but it has deepened into a chasm which is almost frightening. While we see headline numbers of our country's growth, our foreign exchange reserves, the Sensex, and a host of other indicators showing a robust pickup, recovery, in fact, growth and success, there is also a major dislocation of lives and livelihoods, and particularly of jobs, of income, of the marginalized, the poor, the urban poor particularly, and also of those in the informal sector who were not so-called in the banking net or in the formal sort of recognition parameters. We need to understand that while we are minding our own business and we are looking at strategies for combating, we have to be acutely aware that this is a potential problem area, maybe slightly hidden because the COVID is causing a lot of people to still be reticent. But sooner or later, God willing, COVID will be behind us, and we will have a very, very major issue staring in front of us. I think when you talked about us being prepared for this eventuality, I think it's about this, which is not exactly within the organization, but in our neighborhood, in our larger ecosystem, we will be faced with this disparity, which will come in some way to cause grief to us, unless we are able to address it. Now, I think a lot of good work has happened in terms of transfer of money, in terms of food and ration, in terms of healthcare benefits. I only see all these getting accelerated further as the distress deepens and people come to realize it. So clearly there will be ultimately pressure on the exchequer. Maybe we will need to cough up more in terms of taxes or levies or what have you, to see that this part of our brethren who have been particularly hurt are able to survive and exist. So clearly to me, that is a challenge, not directly in the organization, but in our ecosystem, in our economy, that we will need to learn how to grapple with.
Thank you. I think that's a very valid point, and again, that reflects the moral compass that you have in terms of making sure that business is inclusive, and the responsibility of inclusivity is not just on the government, but it will have to be a collaborative effort. Sudhirji, your thoughts?
Yeah. You asked a question, Pranjal, in your first outing as to what exactly did we do. Now, this differed from industry to industry. In food processing, it was different. In engineering, it was different. In finance and investment, it was different. So I'm not going to each one that way, but the broad principle which I would lay down. First was lead from the front. I took a very unusual step. The first lockdown took place, if I remember right, on 8th of June 20. I personally was in office on 15th of June 20, even though I was 75 plus, because I felt I could not ask my people to be, critical people to be in office till I am there. Second, we made it very, very convenient for them to receive all the facilities. We said, we will send you cars. So I used our domestic cars. Yeah, everywhere we used to come to office only in cars, no public transport. Third, those who were not coming, workers or anything, full pay, no deduction at any cost. Then the three things which were very important, think ahead of, in these times, finance may become critical. You must have adequate fallback. Four, how do you maintain the supply chain? Because without the supply chain, whatever you may like to do, you can't do anything. And remember that you yourself are part of a supply chain to your customer. So to see to it that you provide his need one way or the other, even if it means more shipping costs, more logistic costs, see to it and look at it long term. And overall, I feel with these 5-6 principles, we came out reasonably well on top after the COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhirji. There are two questions we've got on opportunities, and perhaps, Nikhil, I can come to you on those. One is, while we've seen a lot of disruption, and that is well articulated, have new opportunities arisen where an organization can say, well, this may have collapsed, but something new is a new, either a business opportunity or a new way of doing business, or perhaps reorganizing your group. Are there positives which companies can lean on?
Most definitely, Pranjal. I think firstly to concur with what Mr. Jalan said from a supply chain perspective, before I answer your question, you are only as strong as your weakest link in a supply chain. So if one aspect of a supply chain is not able to supply, you cannot supply onto your customer. So having said that, your approach towards the societal needs, etc., has to take the same view. You are only as strong as the ecosystem in which you work. So you have to be compassionate and have to look at the problems that exist beyond your walls as well. But having said that, the business opportunities have been immense. The speed of adoption of digitization and the belief by customers to be able to take decisions on those platforms or through data provided by those platforms has been something very encouraging. And so it has opened up a different aspects of business models and different revenue streams. Specifically for us on the aftermarket of the servicing side, it has been a challenge for us to get data from customers through sensors in the past because of data security. Now, given the level of sensors that are available, this fear has been mitigated to somewhat of an extent, which had allowed us to provide greater value to our customers, which has now enabled us to have a completely new business stream of digital services, which we overlay as an engineering company. And we find this extremely encouraging. More than that is also the adoption of something that Mr. Jalan said about AI in the learnings of different business processes that we have. Specifically for our R&D, we find big data and management of artificial intelligence through the data set that we have allows us to come up with newer and better products, which we have already launched into the market and which our customers are seeing the benefit of right now. So there are distinct advantages of digitization which have happened in terms of efficiency, but also newer business models and revenue models that have been created out of it. Of course, everyone knows the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India and how that has really flourished under COVID. And so I'm sure that many of the participants here would also have equal ideas, and I encourage them to go forward in a sure manner.
Thanks, Nikhil. And Harji, the same question to you, that you mentioned that you were in the 3 or 4 sectors which were most hard hit by the pandemic and the lockdown. But today, do you see opportunities which may be pleasant to surprise you? And are there, you mentioned there's light at the end of it. So how do you see these opportunities, and what's the best way to make the most of them?
So interestingly, in the hospitality sector, we've seen that there has been a pickup in the resorts. And, the domestic high net worth individuals who are normally not going to Indian resort destinations because they would prefer to travel overseas have now found the opportunity to travel within the country, which is good news for us because our hotels were not able to attract those kind of customers earlier because they, found it very, very easy to just take a flight and go somewhere. Now the traveling itself has become such a pain that, the Indian hotels have started suddenly improving. That obviously is not the case with city hotels, though some amount of recovery happened because of staycations. People have got so tired of staying at home that they've started going to a hotel in your own city just to spend a weekend. So those are new opportunities which have come up. On the real estate side, what we have seen is, and that's not just because of COVID, but for a series of new changes that have happened in the regulatory regime, credible builders have got a boost in their buyer profile as well as the traction of the buyer. So I do see, in fact, even home buying has become very, very important. The millennials used to tend to be a little nomadic. They rather preferred to hire a place than to own one. But the pandemic has made a reset in their thinking. And now they feel they need at least one space which they can call their own to actually go to in case some event like this were to come. Actually, for all of us who are born after India's independence, we haven't really faced a crisis of such proportions. And this is the first time we are facing something which has really shaken us in a way that probably no other event has shaken. So I think a lot of reset has happened in the way we think, the way we think about the future, the way we want to deploy our resources, the sense of security, etc., many of which has impacted house buying in a positive manner.
Thank you. I think we have a couple of interesting questions coming from the audience. I'm going to pick those up. One is, and perhaps, I can request Rajiv also to weigh in with his experience. Rajiv, there are 2 connected questions, and I'll request you to address it. One is about, missed opportunities? How do you cope with that? And also the fact that the loss which has occurred in the last few months, is there a way that the lockdown is in some way a missed opportunity? We had growth plans for 2021. Those growth plans were out of the window. But at the same time, the loss is acute. Is there a way, is there an approach through which such opportunities which were missed or the loss which has been incurred, can that be recovered? Is there a way out, or should we just write it off and move on?
Yeah, I think there are two things. I don't think one should ever look at, really a missed opportunity. That's a bit of a misnomer because, I remember my father telling me when I was running for a bus to catch a bus in London, he blew the horn, and normally you don't blow the horn in London. And he called me back and he said, son, you must remember one thing, that if you miss this bus, 3 or 5 minutes later, the next bus will come. So don't rush. There's always another opportunity going to come in your life. Having said that, that perhaps is a slightly lighter vein, but in a way it's true because I've seen many opportunities come my way. Very often I have taken those opportunities and then, it was an incorrect or hasty decision or impetuous decision. So opportunities need to be thought through very, very clearly. But let's look at it from the point of view of the pandemic, because your latter part was also, what do we need to do now, which will enable us, to, in a way, as Harsh said, smile and smile even more. And I think the important thing over there is to stay in the business, to survive in the business. And, one of our businesses is very, very similar to Harsh's business, which is the theme park industry. Now, there, we were perhaps worse off than anybody because we were asked to shut. Shut means zero income. And in the first instance, it was, I think, a 7-month lockdown, complete lockdown in our state for our business. And that's on one hand. The other hand, you're paying salaries and wages, etc. So you really know how to cut costs. And all the fat that, again, Harsh said this, you realize there's so much fat that you're carrying without realizing it. So you cut that all out. And by doing so, you strengthen yourself. And by strengthening yourself, when you revive, the same effort you've done in putting the savings help you to get stronger and stronger and come back in an even stronger way in the future. Thank you, Pranjal.
Thank you.
You're not supposed to bring me in, huh? I'm supposed to just leave it with you. But
no, so I'm also thinking out of the box and doing things which should not be done. So, Sudhirji, you talked about logistics. One question we have is about the whole concept of just-in-time inventory. Many companies seem to be doing stuff. Do you think a new model would emerge on this?
Before that, I want to answer your first question about missed opportunity. I think we should never think of missed opportunities. We should think of opportunities ahead. You reinvent your needs. For example, I'll give you 2 instances in our own industry. One, we are in food processing industry, and 90% of our products were exported. Now, during COVID, it was almost impossible to export most of the things here, and our customers being in US and Europe and UK, they're not ready to take things because they would not be able to put it on the shelves of the malls. We had to reinvent ourselves. One, look at the domestic business and also reinvent your products. We came up with culinary products like ready-to-eat sambar, ready-to-eat dal, curries, dosa wheat, like this, so many things which have come. And they have become a very big part of our production now. So it was an opportunity come out of a block. So one has to look at it. Like in our finance business, where we saw that we could not lend because there was no takers who were risk worthy. So what did we do? We reinvented ourselves into PE, private investors. And we invested in many companies which have become unicorns or unicorns, and they're giving multiple returns far better than a finance business. So you have to look at things with an aggression and change the whole dynamics.
That's a good thought. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask the final question to Nikhil, and then we'll wrap up. And the work from home concept is much discussed, but where are we headed now, Nikhil? The question are that will we see a hybrid model? Do we think that requesting the teams to return to office is a good idea? What do you think could emerge, or will there be different models emerging?
I think different models will emerge, but I think everyone has had a somewhat pleasant experience on work from home in some manner or the other. Some businesses which require physical presence will, of course, will need people physically present on site. Manufacturing needs people to be physically present to manufacture. Hospitality needs physical people to be present to serve and to service customers. But I think that to the extent that what COVID has taught us is a real examination of priorities and to change and disrupt the business processes within companies itself. For us, I think it would mean that we have a greater appreciation of the responsibilities that employees can put on themselves to achieve their own targets. And so therefore, as long as incentives are aligned towards the ultimate outcome, we believe that those individuals and those business processes can have a certain degree of flexibility in terms of working from home and not. Unfortunately, it's not a carte blanche solution. And I think that for us, we will have to feel our way as to how we go about doing it. And I believe that ultimately what it would lead to is a greater degree of empowerment and responsibility to our employees and our stakeholders. This would apply equally as much to our vendors and subcontractors, because they need to have the same philosophy to be able to provide us with the products for our supply chain in the quality and the time that we require it.
But will this impact the culture and the core of the organization? If we are using,
I think it will. I can see many different ways in which people are functioning from a work from home basis. It really irritates me when I have video calls with people and they have their videos off. That is something that we highly discourage within the organization. But sometimes with external meetings, you can't help it. But I think that degree of transparency is also necessary, and that is something that we lack in this virtual interaction. There's certain unsaid, certain things that are unsaid which you can take in from interacting with people, which I think is necessary in terms of forming relationships and for the longevity of those relationships. But I think that definitely the culture will change, but I think it will change for the better, and we will come out with something that will allow us to be more sustainable in this new age for the future.
Thanks, Nikhil. We'll end here, unless if any of you would like to make share a thought on what Nikhil said.
We have to be just in time.
Right. So, with that, I'll request that we end the session. We could discuss this for, I think, another hour at least. But the fact is that one clear leadership lesson that we have been able to get and garner from this discussion is that, one, you have to have empathy and a focus on who the team is and how you work out with it. Several opportunities are emerging, which means that leadership have to be attuned to making the most of those opportunities, which means that you may have to tweak your business models and perhaps let some people go and go to completely new ideas. And finally, I think the key lesson is also that employees are stakeholders, and now organizations have to ensure that while they are entertaining, employees also have to bear the responsibility of the success of an organization. And perhaps the relationship between the organization and the employees could be closer, which can perhaps build greater respect. So with these, I'd like to close the session and thank the speakers for sharing their views. I'd like to hand it back to AIMA.